Cincinnati Kid. Hubbard's got a convoy. Chased by Andrews. At the 30, the 20, he will score!
To the end zone, down the field, and it is deflected, and gone! Touchdown! A.J. Green!
Over goes back to throw, men are coming late, looks right down the middle, there's Eddie Brown, he has it at the 35 to the 30, he may go 10-5, touchdown!
Now the Bengals Super Bowl chances rest on his right foot. The kick is up. It is good!
Corey Dillon, he's gone. The knockout punch, you're looking at it. 65 yards. And they're back to throws. The blitz is on. Goes long, intended for Collinsworth. He has it down to the 20, touchdown. And Chris Collinsworth.
Throwing the long ball. Deep down the field. Chad Johnson's got it. Touchdown, Cincinnati.
Look at Chase go. Oh my goodness, what a gear he just found. Chase for the touchdown. Wow, Chase is on the case.
It is no fluke. It is a fact. The Cincinnati Bengals are headed to Super Bowl 56. The play clock at 3. Shotgun snap. Carr throws into traffic. Intercepted. Jermaine Pratt has the football.
Yeah.
Coffin nails.
Bam, bam, bam. How about that?
That again. You think we'll ever smile again?
Maybe someday.
I think we might be out.
I think once every like 40 years we get to be happy.
Yeah, once every 40. That's about right.
They went in what 81 and 88. So we got till 2028. We gotta wait.
2028's about a good number. That'll be the last The last year of Burrow. Second to last year of Joe Burrow.
We get back. Maybe we get another extension.
Yes, that's it.
There we go.
A lot of people are saying since we started the show, the Cincinnati Bengals have died.
You can't.
We
prove
might
that,
have
but the
cursed
problem
them.
for us is that you can prove that.
You can.
Because
our
our first show here at Champions was right before the Patriots.
The
lost,
Patriots
which
game
did ruin the season, and I know we just dove right into it, but welcome in everybody.
Yes,
we are Chatterbox Sports.
That's
Chatterbox
right.
Bengals live here from Champions Grille every other Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m. Jacob Tissett, Elliot Rearing, Casey McAllister stole Elliot's whole ordeal there.
Yeah, you stole the whole bit. You stole the entire bit. That's okay. We did a cold open. We did a cold open earlier on the show today. And for those of you who don't know who we are, we have a YouTube show every single day on Chatterbox Sports YouTube page, 10 to 12. That's when we are live. Also on the radio at ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. That's from 1 to 3. But we are here now. We've been doing this all season long for the Bengals.
That's right.
Hasn't gone our way.
It has not.
Hasn't gone our way. But before we start, gentlemen, how are we doing?
Doing well. Doing as well as you could be. It's a bye week, so, I mean, Jermaine Pratt said it today. The Bengals aren't going to lose this week.
Okay.
I think he was talking about the Steelers game, but
sure.
I'll take the win in the bye if we can get it, because I'm nervous.
You have to win the bye week. You have to win the bye week. You can't lose it.
We're in a point right now where you have to look around the league to try to talk yourself back into having a chance.
That's right.
I think the odds are around 13, 14% to get into the playoffs.
Sure.
Not looking great.
Yeah.
But if we can get about 5-6 other teams to lose on the bye week, we're right back in it.
Yeah, when I go to the casino and I put $5 on green, I think I have the same amount of percentage to win that as the Bengals do to make the playoffs.
You might. It might be
and that's
close.
roughly. It could. Casey, how you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Were the roads too slick for you today?
No, it was actually not that bad. All things considered, we made it here. We're all set up, ready to roll. I messaged us and said,
"Sure,
it's snowing quite a bit. Are we sure doing this?" And yes,
of course we are. Of course we are. If we get stranded on the road, this is worth it. It's worth it. By the way, Casey got a new car recently. Casey, your old car is still stuck at the Chatterbox office. Hasn't moved in 3 months. Doors are unlocked. Anybody can just sneak on in there.
The thing is, it can't move, so you're okay.
Correct.
Yeah,
Nobody could steal it.
It's not going anywhere. I mean, I guess someone could call and get it towed, but that's actually doing me a service.
Well,
so if someone wants to do that, go ahead. And if someone wants to use it as shelter,
that's
okay. Do that as well.
Maybe some of these Bengals, after they get cut this season, they'll need it. All right, so let's start this thing off. Tonight's going to be a little bit of a different show because there's no game to preview. We're in a bye week, which means the Bengals obviously can't lose. Maybe. Jacobs told me last week that they're going to lose this week.
I'm worried that they might, because if the same thing happens as happened last week before the Bengals played on Sunday Night Football, their playoff odds dropped about 20% before their game even kicked off because nothing went our way.
Yeah.
We don't control our own destiny anymore. Winning the last 6 games, finishing at 10-7, only a 95% chance to make the playoffs. So even if everything goes our way the rest of the year, the Bengals are going to need help in order to get in. So we're focused on the Jets, the Colts, the Broncos, the Chargers, all those other teams in the AFC wildcard hunt. You're watching them this week on the Bengals bye week. The Bengals could absolutely lose this bye week.
It's just not a good week.
Not at all.
It's just not a good season. It's not a good week. It's not a good anything, because when you lose control, at least usually you have something to look forward to. Right now, the Bengals just have nothing to look forward to. Even if it was like one of those 50-50 seasons, each week they're in it, each week they're out of it. They're in every game.
Right.
You just know the story. You have to have some things fall your way. The football has to fall your way eventually. It just hasn't fallen the Bengals' way one time this season. I've never seen anything like it. To not have even just a little bit of luck. Every once in a while you go on a little bit of a stretch there. Maybe you catch a Hail Mary. Maybe you hit a field goal from 58 yards. Maybe one of these things, a turnover. It just hasn't happened this year for the Bengals. It's just been a complete disaster. Casey, are you completely out on the Cincinnati Bengals, or are we going to spin it where the playoffs are still in reach? Because we were talking earlier, our good friend Reed Mouse, who has hosted this show before,
That's right.
keeps telling us if you beat the Steelers, everything's fine.
Just don't let us beat the Steelers.
Everything's fine. Don't let us beat the Steelers. Are you out? How far out? I know you're out.
I have 1 foot out the door. I have personally 1 foot out the door. But when you look at the rest of the schedule, they have to win out to make it make sense. But the schedule, it's pretty favorable, I guess, if you want to look at it in a half full type of way, glass half full type of way.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, they play the Steelers. If they can beat that game, they can win against the Steelers.
Sure.
They play the Browns. They play the Titans and the Cowboys. Those 3 games are all very, very winnable games. They're going to be favored in all 3 of those games, regardless of what happens against the Steelers.
That's right.
And then that means that you're sitting at 8-7 going into the last 2 weeks of the season, where the Steelers may not be playing for anything in Week 18. And can you handle business against the Broncos and a rookie quarterback? I like my chances there.
You're absolutely right, and I think that's why after the Chargers game, I had listed that one as the must-win, the turning point in the season. You lose it, you're officially out. Well, leave it to me. I just need a few hours to get in the ESPN playoff machine and find a way. The Bengals can do this, and the thing that makes this possible is the injury to Dak Prescott, how poor the Cowboys are, how abysmal the Titans are, and the Browns actively tanking. There's 3 games in there that the other team is going to try to let you win. I don't think the Bengals will ever enter a tank conversation just because those star players that they do have playing at a high level, Joe, Jamar, T when he's on the field, even Chase Brown running the football, Trey Hendrickson on defense, those handful of players are far too good to lose to these bottom of the league level teams.
I agree.
So tanking for draft picks and trying to move up on tankathon or in the draft order or anything like that,
Tankathon.
not worth it for Bengals fans right now, because 3 of those games you're probably going to be able to win with one arm tied behind your back. That's why don't let us beat the Steelers is the talking point we have going on in the office right now, because if you can string together 4 wins right there, you're playing maybe a 1-game season if the Steelers are in a good spot and resting their starters.
Yeah, it's just a brutal place to be. When you're too bad to win and you're too good to tank, you're just in no man's land. You're in absolute no man's land.
Exactly.
I will say this. We've discussed the Chargers all week. It's the brutal loss on Sunday Night Football, but I guess we should touch on it just a little bit more tonight. There was a point in that game, I think somewhere in the second quarter, where I thought that was the end. And I'm saying that was the end of the season. It was the end of Zach Taylor, Lou Anarumo. It was the end of everybody. There was a point where I think the Chargers converted like 10 straight first downs on 10 straight plays, and there was almost no hope. Then, similarly to, I think it felt like, it reminded me of when the Bengals, it's vastly different situations, but when the Bengals held the Chiefs in that AFC Championship game to go to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The Bengals stopped the Chiefs right before the half. It was a controversial decision by Andy Reid to go for it there and not take the points.
Absolutely.
It felt a little bit like that, not exactly like that. The refs weren't going the Bengals' way. Not that you can ever blame the refs when you stink like the Bengals have stunk this year, but the refs certainly weren't helping the Bengals out at all on Sunday night.
Especially on that drive.
And the Bengals were able to hold the Chargers to 3 points.
That's right.
And it felt like a little bit of momentum came back. Just a little bit enough. It's faint, but it's there. Do you think the locker room, as of this very second, is still with Zach Taylor and the coaching staff? Because I've gone back in my head, and I think they are, as of this second. I think right now, if they would have lost to the Chargers 46-6 and it was just a blowout annihilation, I think you would have seen a different attitude. I still think there's a chance that if the first half starts the same way as this Chargers game, Russell Wilson's able to get whatever he wants. I still think there's that chance where this team just quits and falls apart and just gives up completely. And you enter the tank conversation, not even just because you're trying to tank, just because nobody cares anymore.
Yeah.
The nobody cares conversation is going to start entering the minds of our players really soon. I just think they haven't lost them just yet. I think there's a glimmer of hope. I don't care too much what Zach Taylor says in press conferences. We all see the tidbits. He's a mouthpiece for the organization. He says what Mike Brown wants to hear. That's it. There's no different change of expression, anything he says after any game. Probably a large reason why nobody likes him here in Cincinnati, but it's the reality of the situation. I don't think they've lost him just yet. What do you guys think?
I don't think Zach Taylor's lost the locker room. I think that's the only way that he will be fired at the end of this year, is if Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, some of those leaders on that offense speak out and want him to be moved. I think other than that, he is going to be the Bengals head coach next year. I don't think that has happened yet. However, I do think we're teetering on the brink. I think that was very close. I think if the second half of that Chargers game would have went much like the first half, we would have been there.
Yeah.
During halftime of that game, we were down as much as we were. Me and Craig Sandlin, the normal host of Chatterbox Bengals, when we're not here, we were talking about planning when we were going to do the Lou Anarumo fired reaction video. We said if the second half goes as bad as this first half is, he'll be out of here by the time Tuesday's over. So we were planning that one. Obviously, the Bengals defense played very well in the second half, turned it around until that last drive at the very end where they gave up the game-winning touchdown to J.K. Dobbins. Lou Anarumo, still the DC going into the bye. Zach Taylor said that it's not time to press the panic button. No wholesale changes will be made during this week off. And I think therein lies the biggest problem I have with this Bengals team right now. I don't think there's an organized message in the locker room. You hear Trey Hendrickson talk about the defense. He said Lou Anarumo is calling the plays. We're making mistakes. And when you watch the film, that lines up more often than not. I've shown you multiple plays from the last few games of guys just not doing their job. On offense, you have Joe saying that he hopes Zach Taylor's right, that they're still in contention. You have Jamar Chase saying that it doesn't fall on him to finish. He only is here to play football. Play calling's on the coaches. It doesn't seem like there's a unified message in the locker room whatsoever. That falls on the head coach.
Yeah.
That falls on Zach Taylor. I know we have one of the best offenses in football. He's the play caller. A lot of people want to give him credit for that. I'm one of them. But when the locker room does seem to be fracturing like this, there's no one to point to but the head coach.
No. Out?
I don't think they're out yet, Elliot. I just think there was too much there that they showed just fight against the Chargers, right? They were able to do what they've done all season long and fight. And I think that there's still one more week in them to really grit it out. Just because, like we said, there's a chance that they can still put together 6 wins, and we're talking about a 10-7 Bengals team that sneaks into the playoffs. I just think that, like Jacob said, the messaging is very misconstrued right now. I don't think there's a unified message at the moment, but that's what this bye week is for, to get right, to figure yourselves out, to get healthy, and to come out on a unified front as a team and stick it to the Steelers. Now, I know that that's a little early to talk about the Steelers game, but the one tweet earlier today, Jermaine Pratt, he tweeted out that they were not going to lose. Some people don't like it. Some people love it. Me personally, I love it.
I love it too.
I love when my players
keeps the fire
guarantee
alive.
a win, especially with how poorly they've been playing.
Absolutely.
So it just feels different. It feels like there is the sense of urgency now going on around the locker room, and that they're going to get their act together and get their ass in gear.
But this lack of unified message, that has to fall on somebody.
I agree.
And there's nobody that should fall on other than Zach Taylor.
I do think there's some other blame that needs to be put on the leaders of this team.
So 100%, I think that's a case too, and that's what I was kind of going to ask you here. I don't think that Chargers loss was a Zach Taylor loss.
No.
There was not a single play call, maybe outside of the 4th and 2, and we just throw it as far as we can. T. Higgins was there, but
it's a touchdown.
It's a touch. I can't complain.
I
can't complain about it. I can't complain about it. Saying that, I do think there's just a lack of leadership, and I do think that if Joe Burrow wanted Zach Taylor gone, this is what we've been talking about. If Joe Burrow wanted him gone, he'd be gone. Mike Brown, despite what you think of him and despite how cheap of an owner he is, he's aware of that $55 million is going to his quarterback per season. That has to take precedent over the $3 million head coach that's a puppet. And I say that with love and respect, but he's a puppet. He's a mouthpiece.
No, you're right.
You stick the hand up there and you talk like that. That's what a puppet does. But saying that, how much of this season do you think is just solely on talent and solely on coaching? If you had to put a 50-50 blame, what percentage goes where? Because I was looking at some of the charts, and Jacob showed me one right before the show, and it was how many double teams our defenders are dealing with. I looked at one where our cornerbacks are ranking, and it's dead last. Everywhere, we're just struggling.
Yeah, I legitimately, I think I'm a little less blaming the coach than most in the city at this point. Maybe that's a fault of my own. I think part of that rationale for me is that I don't see a way that Zach Taylor's gone by opening week next year. So I try to rationalize still believing in him leading this team to win. I think that's the easiest way to operate as a fan. I do put 80 to 90% of this or lack thereof this season on the front office and roster construction.
Sure.
I don't think it's hard to understand why the Bengals season has gone after seeing how they handled the offseason. You came into the offseason, you had secondary and in the interior of your defensive line. You prayed that Sam Hubbard could get healthy and be that complimentary pass rusher. Obviously, that hasn't worked out in your favor. We're looking at the largest discrepancy in NFL history between a team's leading sacker and number 2, Trey Hendrickson, 11.5, Sam Hubbard just at 2. If that holds for the rest of the year on pace, that'll be the biggest discrepancy in NFL history. There's been no compliments to Trey Hendrickson, and that's been a huge problem. The front office went out and signed Geno Stone and Sheldon Rankins in free agency, 2 guys. But when you continue to swing and miss, I blame your evaluation, the DJ Readers, the first editions of the Von Bells. But now Geno Stone, the new Von Bell, Sheldon Rankins, those guys aren't cutting it for us.
No, it comes back to the I don't mean to compare them to the Reds.
Yeah.
But the Reds front office does this thing where, and it's a little bit different because they'll just quit altogether before a season. They won't sign anybody. But they do make a couple of moves a season, and usually if it's a bat or if it's some sort of offensive player that can hit, that guy doesn't work out. It's just a continually miss. You missed on Mike Moustakas. You missed this year on Jamir Candelario. The Bengals keep missing on guys that have to be hits.
Yeah.
If you're not going to draft well, you have to hit on free agent signings, and they haven't. And that's part of the reason where it's just nothing's coming together this season for the Cincinnati Bengals. Part of the spark on Sunday, the defense found it, was when Cam Taylor-Britt was benched.
Exactly.
Cam Taylor-Britt, a disaster of a season. Are you over Cam Taylor-Britt heading into next season? Is this just a regression year? Because I will say this, Ahmad Gardner, Sauce Gardner, is having a bad year too.
Absolutely.
An atrocious year, regarded as one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. Cam Taylor-Britt, same type of deal. I think a lot of fans took umbrage with the fact that he was talking smack against the Commanders.
For sure.
The game he was absolutely torched. But now you're here, and it's like, what is Cam Taylor-Britt? What does our secondary look like? Because he was supposed to be the guy.
Absolutely, and we thought he was trending towards not just being our corner one, but towards being in the corner one conversation, maybe in the whole league.
Yeah.
We thought he was on the way to being the Sauce Gardners of the world, one of the best pure cover corners in all of football, and that couldn't be further from the case. He leads the league in touchdowns allowed and yards allowed of any corner in solo coverage. He's the worst tackler when closest to the ball as defender on the outside on the Bengals defense. That says a lot, considering how bad the Bengals defense is at tackling. Cam Taylor-Britt has been a major problem this year. I could not be further from out on him.
Okay, Casey?
I absolutely believe in him long-term helping this team win at some point.
Same sentiment?
I mean, what he's shown to you in the past should give you the confidence that it's still there at some point, right? I mean, people don't just turn into pumpkins overnight.
Exactly.
Right? I think this has just been a really tough stretch for him. And on top of that, some of the other things that we don't mention with him in coverage is that we also don't have a pass rush. That doesn't help the secondary whatsoever.
Or safeties.
There's no help behind him either. And that, to me, that just spells like you just can't be out on him, right?
No.
You've seen too much of the flashes that make you go, wow. I mean, we've got a guy. I mean, just look at the second week of the season and that spectacular interception. There's still some of that there. We just got to figure out the rest of the pieces to be able to put him in a position to be successful. And that's where we've just struggled. We have guys all over the defense that just have not allowed that sort of play style to work. And it's burnt him time and time again, and it's caused him to make lots of mistakes. And on top of that, too, I mean, when you have a safety who is dead last in the league in Geno Stone, I mean, when you're both on the same side of the field, everything just looks so much worse.
100%. No question about it. There's 85 safeties graded by PFF. Geno Stone is 82nd. Von Bell
Terrible.
in the mid-70s. These guys are not giving any help on the back end to our corners. These guys have been thrown in the fire. I would venture to say even the best corners in the league, I'm not saying they'd be as bad as Cam Taylor-Britt's been this year. They would be much, much worse when lined up with the pass rush the Bengals have and the safeties the Bengals have. You're asking these corners to do a lot. And that's why I was so blown away by when the young guys came in against the Chargers on Sunday night. Josh Newton and DJ Turner both looked phenomenal. And I wonder why we haven't seen more of the young guys we've drafted.
It's absurd, and this is part of the reason why people were so upset with the Jesse Bates stuff. I don't want to get back into that because we talk about it every day, seemingly.
That's right.
But it's you miss on back-to-back safeties. Nick Scott was arguably the worst defensive player last season, couldn't tackle a soul. And then you have this season, you bring in Geno Stone, supposedly a guy that could do it, and it hasn't worked again. It hasn't worked twice in a row, and that's why you pay good talent no matter the position. I know we have disagreements on that, but at the end of the day, Jesse Bates is having a phenomenal season. It couldn't be. I'll tell you this: it couldn't look worse. And the irony there too, it's of Joe Mixon. Sometimes you don't have to sign those guys. If you're a good organization, you can let those guys go and it be okay. The issue is the Bengals still probably aren't a great organization.
No,
and that's what it comes down to. So moving on from the defensive side just for a little bit, we'll go to the special teams side of the football, a part of the football where I think we all felt pretty confident coming into this season. Rical looked absolutely phenomenal coming into the season. He was punting, I think, 85 yards in the preseason.
Yeah.
Looked absolutely incredible. A very good replacement for Brad Robbins, who stunk. The worst qualified punter in the NFL last season. But the guy you pay, $16 million, you give a $16.5 million contract to, an Evan McPherson, has disappeared. And I don't understand why. You've seen kickers in the league struggle this season. I've seen it with Justin Tucker. And you move down the line. Evan McPherson stinks. I think Jacob said he ranks, 37th?
It was 39th last
39th.
Yeah, 39th. And just a friendly reminder for everyone in the room, there are only 32 teams in the NFL, and they all only have one kicker. Our guy, the most expensive one, 7 spots below that.
It's an impossible situation. You can't win games when the defense is terrible and the special teams unit fails to execute. Nothing has gone right. Evan McPherson, though, we discussed it this week earlier on the show. Why not discuss it one more time? Are we out on Evan McPherson? I'm not out yet. And I don't think you can be out just based on the fact that kickers go through this. Every kicker goes through a slump like this. It stinks that the Bengals, when you need them most, this is when the slump has happened. You saw it a little bit last year, and you started to see the doubt creep into the fans' minds. This year, it's all the way there. You can't trust Evan McPherson to make anything outside of an extra point. Do you still trust Evan McPherson?
The first point in time Bengals fans cannot trust Evan McPherson is June 2nd, because that's the first day that the Bengals can cut him and have any kind of financial savings. So as of right now on November 21st, I do believe in Evan McPherson. The way his contract's set up, he has the runway of the rest of the season. You're never going to move on from him. We just saw what happened in Kansas City last week. Harrison Butker tears his meniscus, misses 4 weeks. They have to get a practice squad kicker from New York. You're not going to cut your kicker mid-season. It's not a thing that happens in the NFL. Evan McPherson's going to be the guy here. The first time you have that conversation is in the offseason. I think that's only if this goes somehow worse.
Yeah.
I think if he's still fairly good inside 50, you're still your kicker next year. And you try to work on some of the mechanical issues during the offseason. Definitely get him some competition in the offseason. I would bring in somebody to kick in the offseason to battle for that job. But I think Evan McPherson's going to be the kicker for the Bengals.
Do you think it's the operation or do you think it's the kicker? And this is what I've tried to find. I've seen, I saw an in-depth analysis TikTok the other day about every kick Justin Tucker's missed this season has been the same exact kick. The holder apparently there's some certain way, and I'm not a football guy. I'm not the biggest football guy in the world, nor do I know how to hold down a field goal. But there was an operation flaw where the holder keeps it further up opposed to where usually you want to keep it back.
Yeah.
Something like that. And Justin Tucker misses it every single time left. I don't know if it's that this year. Obviously you had the blunder with Rico in the Ravens game. But is it a kicking or is it an operation thing? Because he hasn't had the same holder snapper for a couple years now.
You're right.
Well, I mean, both of his kicks went wide left. So maybe there is something to it. Most people don't realize that kickers, there's more to it than just them kicking the ball. There's the snapping, there's the holding. It's a whole operation. And
it's a rhythm.
It's a rhythm. And when you get out of sync, it causes the worst looking kicks that you've ever seen. And not to mention, too, like some of the kicks are not just Evan's fault. I mean, some of them are just really, really bad snaps and bad holds, like the Ravens game. That was a terrible operation.
Terrible.
I think this last week versus the Chargers, I didn't see anything that was crazy in the operation.
Neither did I.
But like you mentioned, it's some of those just slight things where it could be too far up and he's kicking it and it's going wide left. That can really mess with the kicker. So.
And the other part of it is the yips, too. And
Absolutely.
And every player gets it in every sport ever. Since the dawn of time, players get the yips. You get to the free throw line, you can't make a foul shot for a game and a half. You're on the tee, you're playing golf, God knows I do it, shank it right. Shank it right, and you keep shanking it right until eventually one day you just figure it out. And you just have to play through it. That's the only way. Taking snaps away from Evan McPherson, cutting him so the Kansas City Chiefs can pick him up and taunt it in our face, doesn't do anybody any good.
But what's something that could make that happen? Maybe the 4-week stretch where Zach Taylor looked at Evan McPherson on the sideline and said, hey, I don't believe in you.
Yeah.
We're going for these 4th downs with the game on the line.
Yeah.
Maybe that builds up this lack of trust McPherson has in himself now. I put some of this on Zach Taylor.
Yeah.
I think he showed Evan McPherson earlier in the season that he doesn't believe in him in these must-win situations. And now that he's thrown in the fire, he's being forced to kick, and he doesn't believe in himself. On Tuesday's night at Chatterbox Bengals, we broke down both of his makes and both of his misses from the Chargers game. The operation was clean on all 4 kicks. All 4 kicks, even the makes, trail left.
Yeah.
It's something with his system kicking.
Yeah.
It's something with the mechanics of the kick. Evan McPherson has to work through this. He has to figure something out. If you go back to his days at Florida and even high school, all of his kicks tail to the left, especially when you get out to the 50-yard line or even further out for the distance kicks. That's when that draw comes into play. He needs to play it more, I believe.
Yep.
I think that's the thing he's missing out on. It's easier to correct that kind of stuff when you're closer. Think about golf.
Yeah.
If you have a massive hook in your shot, it's way easier to correct that on a shorter swing than on a drive. You're losing balls left and right. That's what's happening with Evan McPherson right now. He can't correct that on the long kicks, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I said tonight, by the way, I made a little note on my computer. Don't be negative this entire show. Don't be negative, because if I'm too negative, I'm just not going to start. I'm not going to watch Bengals games anymore, and that's almost where we're at. I almost had to turn off the Chargers game. I was the first time this season, but despite that, let's try to be a little bit positive today. Joe Burrow, there isn't much else to say about him. He leads the NFL in passing, leads him in touchdowns. He has only thrown 4 interceptions on the year, well on pace for a 40-touchdown season. If he weren't on the Bengals, if he weren't on the Bengals, he would be the front runner for MVP outside of just the city. Any other franchise, he's a Super Bowl MVP front runner. Sorry. This season it's been an utter train wreck for the Bengals. Takes him away from it. But is this his best season? Is this the best of Joe Burrow that we're seeing?
Oh, I think so. I don't think you can have a much better season than he's having right now. And that's no slight to Joe Burrow, but I think this is absolutely the peak that we're going to see of him. And can he do it again? For sure. But he's pacing 40 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. He's going to break his own franchise records in every single category. It's an unbelievable season. It's the best quarterback season in Bengals history if he continues on this trajectory and stays healthy. It's going to go down statistically as one of the top 20 quarterback seasons of all time when you go through all these metrics. He's ahead of Josh Allen in yards and touchdowns. He has a higher QBR and 1 less interception. Josh Allen's the MVP favorite.
Yeah.
If the Bengals aren't 4-7, if the Bengals are 5-6, Joe Burrow is probably in the top 5 of MVP conversation. The numbers he's putting up could not be more deserving of that award, but in professional sports for about the last 20 to 25 years, the V in MVP doesn't mean a thing. Yep. It goes to the quarterback on the team that's at the top of the rankings, and that stinks, but Joe Burrow is certainly the most valuable player in the NFL this year. There's no question about that.
There was a lot of pushback earlier this week on your take that if the Bengals were to lose to the Steelers, and then maybe they lose the next week. Is it the Cowboys after that?
I believe so.
I think it's the Cowboys after that. The Simpsons game, by the way, unable to be flexed.
Unable to be flexed.
The Cowboys game, unable to be flexed on Monday Night Football because they did all the animation for the Simpsons game.
Yeah, too much drawing has taken place for the alternate Simpsons broadcast on Disney+. So Cooper Rush versus the 4-7 Bengals is going to be on your TV on ESPN.
Disney Plus as well. Disney Plus, ESPN Plus will be on everything. Saying all this, I think if you had to say one thing about Joe Burrow this year, it's the wrist looks okay, and that was the biggest concern is injuries, yada yada yada. Saying the wrist looks fine now, you can't risk an injury. And if you lose to the Steelers, you lose to the Cowboys, you have to at least have the conversation, be like, Joe, is this worth it? is it worth going out there trying to, break every record in the world, be as good of a quarterback as you can be at the expense of your health and at the expense of the Bengals' future? I agree with you. I don't think it's worth the risk. Now, I don't know how that conversation goes.
Every single person in this bar knows how that conversation goes. Zach Taylor walks up to Joe Burrow and says, hey, Joe, we're mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. You're not going to play anymore.
No.
Joe says, Zach, you don't have a job. I think that's exactly how that goes. There's no way Joe's sitting down. He's the biggest competitor on this team. We've seen that time and time again. You're never going to sit him down. But speaking from a fan's perspective, if you lose to the Steelers, you're 4-8. You are all but mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Depending on what else happens in the league, you could be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. In that case, I don't know how much longer I can watch Joe Burrow be put under the turf in these primetime games. The biggest plays the Bengals have made all year has been Joe running for his life and creating highlight plays like we haven't seen since Johnny Manziel won the Heisman. And after every play, they pan to Jamar Chase running for a 70-yard touchdown. The camera comes back to midfield, and Joe Burrow's buried under the lightning bolt in SoFi. It doesn't make sense, and I'm honestly not okay with it.
No.
It hurts to watch, and if the Bengals are trying to scratch and claw to make the playoffs, I'm all in. Let him do whatever it takes. Let him fight. If they're eliminated, you got to protect the players from themselves at some point. If it's a lost season, don't compound it into losing too.
It hurts to watch the videos after the games too now. There's some fan, I don't know who it was, maybe it was a reporter, who took a video of Joe Burrow walking off the field in Los Angeles. And that's just a guy who's broken. That's a guy who's defeated. And I don't want that spirit to continue by having him get crushed. Casey, are you in for benching Joe Burrow if the Bengals were to lose the next 2 games?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think for sure he'd be benched the final game. But I don't think he'd play the final game. But after these next 2, I think I'd bench him.
Yeah, I'm in the camp where I don't want to waste another season.
Yeah.
If you get hurt at this point in the year, you're thinking about not playing the rest of the year next year too.
Yeah.
So I just you have to do it. You have to give him that rest. You got to be the bigger person in the room and say, listen, you got to stay healthy for next year, because right now at this point you're the only hope that this team has. And if you're not out there the next season, then what's the point?
And I'm not sitting here saying every single year the Bengals get eliminated from the playoffs, you should pull all your starters.
No.
You pull your $55 million quarterback when you have the worst O-line in football.
Joe Burrow's the one thing that's masking the
100%.
many problems the Bengals have this year. And you say 4-7, maybe they can sneak in. The only reason you can say that is because of Joe Burrow.
Absolutely.
You take that away, and God knows what this Bengals. I think if you take away Joe Burrow, truly it's the worst team in football.
And that's what goes back to the MVP conversation.
Yeah.
Does the V matter? Because if you take Patrick Mahomes off the Chiefs and replace him with something else, Patrick Mahomes has not been playing great this year.
Terrible. He's been
That
playing
defense
terrible.
has been phenomenal. When Harrison Butker was healthy, he was winning them games. Josh Allen's been great. Lamar Jackson's been great. Lamar Jackson also has the 4th MVP candidate in his offense with him. Joe Burrow is alone, and he's doing this to a point where the Bengals are sitting at 4-7, and we can rationally sit here and say they can win their next 6 games and maybe sneak in. And it's not that crazy. It's unbelievable what he's been able to do to keep the Bengals relevant with this record and the way the other 2 sides of the ball have been playing. Special teams and defense have been abysmal, and he has kept this offense afloat with a terrible O-line and one of the worst run games in the NFL when it comes to consistency.
Yeah, you did say he was alone. There's one more guy he has.
That's true. Well,
there's one guy.
The passing game's alone.
Yeah, correct. One more guy he has, Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase, we all know what happened before the season, the contract disputes. It was a nuisance. The Bengals organization dropped the ball. That's why everybody says they're cheap. Has a chance at the triple crown in receiving this year. Leads in receptions with 73. Leads in yards with 1,056. Leads in touchdowns with 12. He has 6 40-plus yard receptions. That leads the league as well. Jamar Chase, how much is this guy worth? Because you had a chance to get him at a set number before the year. You lost that opportunity. Now, how much is Jamar Chase worth? He's having one of the best wide receiving seasons in a long, long time in this league.
That's right. Jamar Chase has 4 multi-touchdown games so far this year. Justin Jefferson has 5 in his career. Jamar Chase has been unbelievable this year. He's pacing the Triple Crown. We haven't seen that since Cooper Kupp in 2021 when they beat the Bengals in the Super Bowl. This is one of the best wide receiver seasons of all time, and I know I just got finished saying that with Joe Burrow, but it applies here too. These guys are unbelievable. First in all of those things, top 50 in average per catch, leading the league in catches is unbelievable. He has been nothing short of the top receiver in football, and he's going to be compensated like it, whether it's in Cincinnati or elsewhere. He will certainly get the same percentage of the cap as Justin Jefferson, which would put him at about $38 million. I think it's going to be far above that, 40 to 42 a year for Jamar Chase.
Speaking of the wide receiving room, especially given the fact that Jamar Chase is having such a good year, one reason is that he's having such a great year is because he has to be that guy.
Yeah.
T. Higgins hasn't been available. T. Higgins, when he plays, has been incredible. He's been absolutely lights out. 9 catches, 148 yards, and a touchdown last week against the Chargers. I just don't know when you start to refresh or you ride with him next season. Because if he plays, he's phenomenal, and the offense looks elite. The offense looks like the best in the NFL by a wide margin. If he misses games, it's a different story. It still looks okay. It still looks good, but at times it's not consistent like it is when he's there. I don't think, we talked about it on the show today a little bit, I don't think there's a world where the Bengals are going to give this guy a contract, but it would be a mistake not to double tag him, as Jacob 100%. Said earlier. You have to tag him. And you have to trade him. You have to get some sort of value for T. Higgins next year. My only issue is who the hell is going to replace him?
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that's the conversation that you have to have when you talk about moving on from T. Higgins. That adds a need next year in the draft. You then have to use a premium pick or a major free agency slot on a wide receiver. You can't just run Jamar Chase out there with Andre Yoshivas and all those other guys that haven't been able to step up at all since they got to Cincinnati. That's been the real shame. I mean, T. Higgins, just 6 games played this year, over 100 yards above the Bengals' third leading receiver. He falls in second behind Jamar Chase. Just no one else on this Bengals team really showing an initiative in the receiver room to take that step. We thought maybe it would be Jermaine Burton. It's been the furthest thing possible from that. If you let T. Higgins go, you certainly have a bigger need on your table with wide receiver when you already have to address a lot of questions on defense. That does worry me. But if that price tag's above 21, 22 million, I'm not signing a guy that's only going to play 10 out of 17 games a year.
Yeah.
Those 10 games that he played, he's probably worth 30. He's probably worth a top 10 wide receiver contract, but he just doesn't do it. And teams are desperate for number 1 receivers, top pass catchers. Someone will pay him that top of market value, whether it's 25 million, 28 million, whatever that is. The Bengals will not be the team to do that. Which is a shame because I love T in Cincinnati. He takes this offense to another level. He's been a great guy for this community and for this team ever since he got here. He was here before we were great. We've ridden it with him ever since. It's been a great ride with T. Higgins. I do think it is coming to an end, and the Bengals are going to have to address that in the draft more likely than not.
Before we continue, for those of you who are here tonight, some of you for us, thank you very much for coming. But I'm sure some of you are here because we're giving away Bengals tickets.
That's right.
For the Steelers game. So for those of you who have tickets, we will be doing that in about 22 minutes. 22 minutes, we'll be announcing the winner of the Bengals tickets versus the Steelers. That is presented by Heidelberg and Bud Light. So drink as much as you can responsibly to get more tickets for yourself. Have a better chance at winning Bengals tickets. I know, by the way, shout out to Mr. Seltzer's up here up front. So shout out to Mr. Seltzer. It's his first time coming. Nate has been here every single week. This is the part of the show where I just shout out people. Mel and Judy have been here every week. Thank you guys for coming still every week. You guys are the only ones who I think have been here every single week. I believe we have a special guest in the back of the room, principal of Elder High School, Jacob.
Oh,
principal
very nice.
of Elder High School,
Nice.
Kurt
Go
Ruffing.
Bombers.
What was that?
Go Bombers?
No, I see. There's no bomber. There's not even.
There's jersey right there.
Where?
Go Bombers.
Is it by the bathroom? It's by the bathroom. That's not a real place. We got celebrities here tonight. But thank you everybody for coming out. Again, talk to your waitress if you don't have any tickets for the Steelers ticket giveaway, Bengals ticket giveaway. We'll be doing that in about 20 minutes now. So have fun with that. All right, back to the show though. The roster next season, we talked about the wide receiving, we've talked about just about everything, excuse me. Next season, how different of a roster are we looking at? Because as of right now, from this very second, and you've thrown this word out on the show many times over the past couple of weeks, Jacob, rebuild.
Yeah.
And rebuild, I think, scares fans because I think when you think of rebuild, you think of what the Browns go through seemingly every single year. Yeah. It's always a rebuild with the Browns because they suck, respectfully. They play tonight, by the way. Shout out to the Browns. I hope they win tonight. And you think of the Reds. You think of the Reds when you think of rebuild. You think of a 20-year rebuild to no avail. It's a different thing in the NFL. It really is. Outside of the Cleveland Browns, teams are able to rebuild, and you're able to be successful in a short period of time. You have the Cincinnati Bengals who were terrible for a couple years. It takes one player, and it sparks everything. It sparks a change. Now we have that player, so I'd argue it's a little bit easier now because once you have the quarterback, you got to plug and play a little bit of the guys in the defense, maybe some more offensive linemen. But next year, how different of a roster are we going to be looking at?
In all honesty, I don't think it's going to be as different as a lot of us would like. I think there's a handful of players that are going to be moved on from, and hopefully those few fixes are enough to elevate the overall unit. Maybe sometimes just a change of scenery, and maybe that comes with coaching and play calling as well. A change of scenery can spark something for every single person in that room, and I think that's what we have to hope for as Bengals fans.
Yeah.
I think we're looking at the two guys that we signed to overhaul this defense in this year's free agency cycle being released and having those two spots opened up next year, Sheldon Rankins and Geno Stone. We're going to have new interior, and we have young guys that I think I'm going to count as new pieces as well. We're going to have Josh Newton getting more reps. We're going to have DJ Turner back healthy. Dax Hill, we only saw for a couple weeks at his new position of corner, and he looked a hell of a lot better than he ever looked at safety. So that's something I'm choosing to be excited about as well. You got to be excited about some of the pieces we already have, because if I know anything about being a Bengals fan my whole life, they're not going to make all the changes I want them to make. I think the hope we have is you change the interior of the offensive line, the back end of the defense, and get a complimentary pass rusher and cross your fingers.
Casey, how much money, and you've been talking about this all week, how much money can the Bengals get just by cutting some of the extra fat that this roster has this year, the fat that didn't work out?
Yeah, I mean, if we want to just do the top two guys with Sheldon Rankins and Geno Stone, that right there is about $15 million right there.
Yeah.
And then you include guys like Kappa, who've been the worst guard in the NFL.
The worst guard in the NFL.
You're talking about like 20. And then if you want to go even further than that, if you want to cut Sam Hubbard, that's like another $8 million there. So you're talking about like anywhere between $15 to $30 million that this team could get back into getting better players, better stars on this football team, that they can actually go out and try to get top talent in free agency, which they really didn't do last season. I mean, they got guys that were in that mid-tier range. I think they need to take a step back and realize that they kind of got lucky the last couple off seasons when they went to the Super Bowl, and then 2020 where they were able to bring in DJ Reader and Trey Hendrickson. They need to be able to go find guys that are going to just make an impact right away on this team. They can't risk another Geno Stone or Nick Scott in the backfield anymore. You're done playing around. You got to be serious about this. And when you save that much money too, they have the ability now to also pay Chase. So it's something that they should certainly look into. Unfortunately, though, we all know with this franchise that they don't usually do the thing that people beg them to do.
Right.
So
the common sense move isn't anywhere in the Bengals front office playbook.
Not at all. Not at all. Moving on, we mentioned the Bengals have a chance at the playoffs.
Yeah.
Taking a quick look around the AFC, it's the worst it's ever been.
It is.
The Chiefs still hold the 1 seed as of this very second. Don't have the tiebreaker over the Bills after a loss on Sunday, but still have the 1 seed, 9-1. The Buffalo Bills lead the AFC East, hold that two spot. The Pittsburgh Steelers aren't far behind, 8-2. Steelers low-key have a chance. I mean, if you rattle off a couple wins here, you're one loss behind the Chiefs. They still play. Do they still play the Chiefs?
Yeah,
they do.
They do play the Chiefs. So the Steelers control their destiny of potentially a 1 seed this year. Texans lead the South 7-4. They hold the 4. Chargers have the 5. Ravens have the 6. Those two are half game apart. And then finally, you have the Denver Broncos coming at the 7th spot, 6-5. The Bengals coming at 10. Somehow they've dropped a spot. They're behind the Miami Dolphins. I don't know how that happened. I think it's just because of
Dolphins
conference.
are 4-6. They played one less game, have one less loss.
And the conference record obviously is a little bit different there too. Bengals don't win in the conference, which is incredible, by the way. It's just absolutely incredible. But what is the math? What's the path to get into the postseason for the Bengals? Because I'm not worried about the Dolphins. I'm not worried about the Colts. The Colts are certainly looking a little bit better now with Anthony Richardson. Saying that, I think it's the Broncos. It's the Broncos and the Bengals for that final spot. And coincidentally, they both do play each other. So there is, I think, a little bit of a glimmer of hope if I want to be a little bit positive tonight. Instead of just being doom and gloom, season's over, tank it all, rebuild. I do think that 13% chance that we talked about earlier, I do think it's a little bit bigger. And by the way, Casey brought this up to my attention. The Bengals Twitter account today decided to release an article saying, you know what, we can make the playoffs. There's a better than not chance. They've tried every bit in the world this year. They tried the mic cart.
They brought the cart back.
They tried everything. It's all failed miserably. Saying that, what's the path? What's the path to the playoffs for the Bengals?
This is the easiest path to find for the Bengals since before they lost to the Patriots.
Yeah.
When the Bengals were 0-3, we were in the playoff machine trying to figure out a way to get them there and how to get them back to the 1 seed and win the North and all that stuff. This is by far the easiest path the Bengals have had yet because you only have one path and it's win out.
Yep.
You got to win all your games. There is one workaround path that gives us one more loss, and that's the Steelers losing out.
Okay.
And that sounds crazy for an 8-2 team to lose out, but they go to Cleveland, to Cincinnati, Browns at home, to Philadelphia, to Baltimore, Chiefs, and then Bengals.
Yeah.
All of those games are definitely losable. If they lose their games leading up to that final Bengals game, that's a win and in Bengals-Steelers game for the final wild card spot.
How about that?
How amazing would that be if the Bengals take care of business, are able to go to Pittsburgh, who is absolutely reeling at 8-8 after being 8-2, and play a play-in game for the playoffs? That'd be phenomenal. Obviously far-fetched, but if the Bengals win out, the only thing they need is the Broncos to lose one more game, and they are in. The Broncos have a fairly easy schedule, but the Chiefs and the Chargers also on there with the Bengals. I like our chances if we win out.
Could you imagine the heartbreak of that one? Week 17. Is it 18 now?
18 weeks, 17 games.
Week 18. Bengals, Evan McPherson needs a 45-yarder. Shank it dead left.
Yeah, no, that'd be tough.
No game to preview this week. Usually we preview a game in the second half of this show.
Worst possible scenario is win out and miss, right?
That would be terrible.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that.
10-7 and miss the playoffs. That's the worst possible scenario.
I'd much rather lose out and just be dead.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd rather just be
Travis
dead.
Hunter in stripes would be sick.
Would be great. Would be great. We usually preview the game upcoming. That obviously we play a bye, so no game. But so what we're gonna do end of season awards.
The thing about the end of season awards is the last time we were at Champions, we did the mid-season awards.
That was 2 weeks ago.
And in the 2 weeks since we were last here, the season has come to an end.
So
we're going to do the end of season awards.
It's over.
Some of them are very simple. We can rattle off these top 3 because they're pretty much no-brainers.
So defensive player of the year. I think it's unanimous. We talked about it before.
He leads the NFL in sacks.
It's no doubt about it. Troy Hendrickson.
11.5 sacks with no help as a pass rush on the defense. Unbelievable. Everyone that plays the Bengals knows he's their only threat, and he still gets the job done. Just an unbelievable player.
MVP, again, unanimous. This should be unanimous in the NFL as well, but it's just our team.
If they're not going to give him the MVP, we will.
That's right.
So we're going to give Joe Burrow the end-of-season MVP for the Cincinnati Bengals. Another no-brainer. Same with this third one.
That's right. We go up to the offensive player of the year, who I think actually will win it this year in the NFL.
For sure, yeah.
Will win it. Jamar Chase. No doubt about it. Jamar Chase has been incredible this year, better than we all thought.
Triple crown.
Certainly better than the Bengals thought, given the fact that they wouldn't pay him.
Yeah.
But now we get into the fun stuff. Most improved this season. If you had to give a most improved award.
I think you wish that there were more options.
Correct.
I don't think there's that many options for most improved player on the Bengals this year. I wish there was more. I think this one also is pretty clear when you think about it. I think it's Chase Brown. I don't think anyone really expected what Chase Brown was going to give the Bengals in this backfield. I know, at least myself, I thought at most it was going to be a 50-50 split between him and Zach Moss. Now, since Zach Moss has gotten hurt, he's taken a stranglehold on that position and has a very, very good job.
Most regressed player, because apparently the Bengals, after 1 year, everybody's just become worse than they were the previous year. Casey, who's one name for your most regressed player of the year for the Bengals?
I'm going to go with Cam Taylor-Britt.
That's fair.
It's pretty bad.
That's fair.
Do we have another one?
Well, you got to give recognition to everyone, and Evan McPherson has also regressed.
There's two.
We're going to go 2004 Rookie of the Year award and do a co-award.
Wow.
Evan McPherson, Cam Taylor-Britt, most regressed player of the year.
Terrible. Congratulations to both of them for being absolutely terrible this season.
Mac and Cam and Mac.
How about that?
How about that? Forward and backwards.
How about that?
Tough.
Okay, here's another one. Offensive Rookie of the Year. We got one rookie who spends his time in casinos oversleeping practices. That guy, I'll tell you what.
He might get an award later.
He might get an award later. He
later.
might win like split the pot. He might win these
Bengals tickets.
You ever go to a church festival? They give out a major award. He might win that one.
He loves when they pick up the ball and the ducks all run. That's Jermaine Burton's favorite game.
That's absolutely right. But I think the offensive player, at least this was my vote. There was some discourse in the office today of who it actually is. I'm going to go with the guy that doesn't even play anymore. His leg is gone or his knee is gone. I think he's torn 2 ACLs, 2 MCLs in 2 years? Eric All. Eric All was a great tight end when we had him here this season. I think the Bengals tight end position's been lacking for 2.5 years now. Having him this year be a shining star, having him be a hit in the draft, I think that gave us a lot of confidence.
Yeah, that's your guy.
It's your guy.
He can do it all.
What was his RAS score?
He can do it all.
His RAS score, it was above average. It was above average. But, yeah, I mean, Eric All, he was fantastic this year. He could block. He could run after the catch. He was a good receiver. I mean, he was really doing well in this offense. It's a shame that he got hurt. Do we want to mention the other guy that was in contention for this?
Yeah. I mean, I understand Eric All was great. Our first-round tackle has also been pretty good. He's a top 25 tackle in the NFL.
The project.
In true pass sets. He's struggled against the run. He's had some growing pains in different areas. But Amarius Mims has been exactly what we've wanted him to be in year one. He'll continue to grow. I think a lot of the shortcomings he's had this year is a product of playing next to the worst guard in football as a 22-year-old right tackle.
And the big concern this year obviously was injury issues with him. He's been mostly healthy.
There's been a couple scares, but we've dodged those bullets.
We got through it. Okay, this is a good one. LVP, the least valuable player of the Cincinnati Bengals, 2024.
We'll do another group award here. It's hard to nail just one down for the least valuable player. And
they're
we're
all
going to give
bad.
it to the whole 2024 free agency class.
That's
Sheldon
fair.
Rankins, Von Bell, Geno Stone. Those are the least valuable players. And I think, just to be fair, Duke Tobin as well. You have been incredibly unvaluable for the Bengals this season.
They tried their best, but in the end they were well.
Did they try their best?
I mean, Jermaine Burton we know didn't,
Well,
but
that's
outside
true.
of the couple other guys, maybe they tried. We don't really know.
Speaking of Jermaine Burton.
Okay.
The most likely to sleep through a Saturday walkthrough, be a healthy scratch on Sunday, and then be seen at the casino on Monday in the same hoodie you wore on Sunday award.
Is that one award?
That one goes to Jermaine Burton.
How about
because
that?
believe it or not, he slept through a Saturday walkthrough, missed the game on Sunday as a healthy scratch, and then seen on Monday in the same hoodie he wore on Sunday at the casino.
When the Bengals only had 2 healthy receivers?
That's right.
Oh, no.
Unbelievable.
Oh, no. Jermaine Burton.
Unbelievable.
Jermaine Burton. He's going to be a big star in the Arena Football League. I think that's coming to Cincinnati.
Maybe,
I think they're going to put it in that terrible Heritage Bank Center, whatever the hell that's called. All right, next up, worst coach of the year. Not best coach of the year. It's worst coach of the year.
The thing about the Bengals coaching staff is there's 3 people you would give this award to. It's the head coach, the defensive coordinator, the special teams coordinator, and it's a really, really tough conversation. But you give it to the umbrella if it's that bad. We're giving it to Zach Taylor.
Okay, that's fair. Zach Taylor, congratulations on your award. Hopefully, maybe, have we gotten a football here at Champions yet from him?
Oh, I mean, he comes for the worst coach of the year award.
Or the next head coach when he gets fired. Okay, moving on. Most likely scapegoat. When they don't fire Zach Taylor, you got to fire somebody.
This one's a no-brainer. The most likely scapegoat for this team because Mike Brown's not willing to eat money and actually improve this roster. The most likely scapegoat, Lou Anarumo. Lou Anarumo, when he has competent players in his defense, one of the best coordinators in all of football.
Yeah.
I showed you a play this weekend where Cam Taylor-Britt didn't know what coverage the defense was running.
Yes.
However, we're going to turn around and fire our defensive coordinator because we have 18 to 22 guys that can't play defense. Sounds like a scapegoat to me.
Listen, you got to give it to him. Congratulations, Lou. Best hat designer.
Another layup, Ted Karras. The only award going to our interior offensive line, Ted Karras. He might not be a great blocker, but he can design a hell of a hat.
He can't do his actual job, but boy, the Cincy logo on those hats looks fire. And we bring the Boom Award to Ryan Rico.
Our fellow Costco guy, Ryan Rico.
Because he brings the boom. Shout out to AJ and Big Justice.
Top 10 punter in all of football. What a change after last season with Robbins.
Absolutely incredible. He did have a bad punt. Nate Seltzer up here doing the We Bring the Boom dance. You want to come up here in front of the camera and do that? That was good. I'll meme it. All right, but that's it for the Bengals talk today. We do have a Thursday night football game that does have somewhat implications for the Cincinnati Bengals. Steelers going to Cleveland to face the Browns. A snowy, rainy night in Cleveland. It's going to be an ugly game. We're going to do best bets. We usually do a best bet segment.
Who are Bengals fans rooting for?
I'm rooting for Jameis Winston because I like Jameis Winston.
I think Bengals fans should be rooting for the Steelers.
I think they should be. But my issue is,
I'm with you. I can't root for Pittsburgh.
But I don't want to.
Raised that way. My mom's here. She did a great job.
Mrs. Tissett. Shout out to Mrs. Tissett.
Did not raise me to root for the Steelers. So I will be rooting for the Browns tonight, even though a Steelers win would help.
Jameis, you rooting for Jameis?
You can't. You can't not. He's going to eat a dub tonight.
Our guy Matthew did the eat the W thing earlier before the show, and
Hopefully
I think it's a
no
sign.
crab legs.
I think no crab legs. No crab. We're not going to steal any crab legs today. But I do think that the spread, tonight's 3.5.
It is.
3.5 at home for the Cleveland Browns, plus 3.5. I'm going to take the Browns plus 3.5.
As well.
I'm going to take the under. I did a strategy today, guys. You know, every week I do 5 first touchdown bets.
That's right.
And usually they all hit. Last week they didn't hit.
No. Usually you hit one of them.
One of them.
Because that's the thing about first touchdown bets, for those of you guys that might not know. Only one person can score the first touchdown, and Elliott bets 6 guys to do so.
Did you watch the Texans game? They scored twice. They scored 2 first touchdowns in that one.
They did.
Tonight, I'm going to go with Darnell Washington. Is that his name?
Yes.
I think that's his name, plus I think 3,000 to score first. So put a tenner on that, win yourself $300. I also have Najee Harris to score first. I have Nick Chubb to score first, and I have this is now I'm not going to lie, this is a sicko one.
Okay.
I have Jameis Winston to score the first touchdown rushing.
I don't like that.
Why don't you like it?
Because he doesn't run the football.
Yeah, but my thing is, what if he did?
The
odds, you're paying for it with the odds there.
I can't argue with that one.
Those are my best. I'm also doing a thing, by the way, and nobody really cares about gambling, but I'm going to say it anyway. Quarterbacks unders, running backs overs.
I think you're in a good spot.
Under for the game. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Steelers, Browns. I'm betting on Russell Wilson there at Moonballs.
Okay.
He's throwing them a lot of them. George Pickens' longest reception line is 25.5 yards over on that number. Russell Wilson's not throwing the ball a lot. When he does, he's going to take shots. Yeah. Pickett's longest reception over 25.5 yards. I know we don't usually bet straight juiced props here. We like to give plus money and parlays.
That's right.
There's one that was just too good to be true. Russell Wilson not to throw an interception tonight. Minus 130. I know there's a little juice on that, but the Browns only have 1 pick so far this year. That defense has not been able to pick off anybody, and Russ is protecting the football. It's a rainy, stormy night. They're not going to throw it a lot. Russ is going to protect the football. No picks for Russell Wilson.
Absolutely. Casey, your mortal lock. Can you give me one mortal lock?
Myles Garrett to get a sack.
Myles Garrett to get a sack.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
Okay, that's fair. That's a good one. What about TJ Watt to get a sack?
That's also going to happen.
Oh,
okay,
a little
parlay?
All right.
A little parlay of each of them to get the sack. Are they both minus money to get a sack?
Almost certainly.
Almost certainly. As we wind down the show and we get to 8 o'clock, I think now is the time to get the bar ready for the ticket giveaway. I don't know where Tim is at, but Tim is responsible for the ticket giveaway. Now, I've had issues reading these tickets.
You have.
Back-to-back weeks.
You have.
Or back-to-back times we've had to do this. Hopefully the tickets are all in the same thing. Last time they used 2 different spools with the tickets, and I got yelled at because one set of the spools wasn't even close. But they were all in the bucket. They were all in the bucket together. So don't yell at me today. I don't want to get yelled at.
Are you the Zach Taylor of champions? Are you just a mouthpiece, whatever the front office tells you?
Exactly. That's actually a really good way to put it. If you put your hand directly up my shirt, I'll say whatever you want. But they're getting it ready. Tim's walking it over here. Big money here.
TJ Watt minus 160 for a sack. Myles Garrett pick him.
Okay, I like that. Tim avoiding the camera. That's a pro move. That's a pro move. There we go.
This, Elliott.
He's going to do the shuffling for me, so I don't have to.
So you don't screw it up?
He's going to pull it too. I like that.
Yeah, cut him out of it.
Again, presented by Heidelberg and Bud Light. It didn't work out. It's good. I don't want to get yelled at today. All right, here we go.
You think you can read?
I can read it. Okay, I'm going to read off this ticket, so if everybody has a ticket for the Bengals-Steelers giveaway, here we go. 799125.
799125.
Whoever's stewing on that.
Oh!
Look at this.
We got a winner.
Can we verify with Tim? I'm not going to verify it. Verify with Tim. I get yelled at with the verifying process too.
799125. That looks good to me.
Wow.
That looks good to me. Congratulations.
Wow. David Duttillo, congratulations. That's an elder man. Elder. How about that? 2 tickets to David Duttillo. All right, everybody, thank you very much. For those of you who've been here before, we do this every single time, so now we bring up Brooke. I don't know where Brooke is, so now we have, yep, there she goes.
It's almost like she doesn't know the schedule.
She doesn't know the schedule. It's the end of every show. Okay, yeah, come all the, yeah, sure. There we go. We'll just move that. Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. So Brooke's gonna give us. So you know the drill.
She's only been fired twice, so let's see if she messes this up.
I do really good now.
Okay.
You've been very good now. And okay, here we go.
Okay, guys. The Bengals are on a bye this week, but that doesn't mean champions is. Still
Wow.
come on Sunday for 6 for $12 domestic buckets. Hooday, let's go.
There you go. All right.
go.
There we go.
go.
Teleprompter. You want to do? Let's do a That wasn't a good hooday. So we're gonna get everybody to say hooday now.
Bad hooday.
That was you got to give them some time to think about it first. So you're gonna. I'm gonna say 3, 2, 1. You say hooday, and then they'll say hooday.
Okay.
All right. You ready? 3, 2, 1.
Hooday.
Hooday. All right, there it is.
we
All right,
go.
that's Brooke. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Champions Grille. Please be
Thank you.
safe on your way home. The icy roads might be an issue. For experienced drivers like myself, they are not. But everybody have a good night. This has been Champions Grille. This has been Off the Bench Chatterbox Sports. Everybody have a good night.